Hello everyone, and welcome back to the tubular yet tactical Comic Vault. I am Captain Logan, and joining me again is Deadpoolzilla.
Greetings, sewer rats, or sewer turtles, or bats, or... Where was I going with this joke, Cap?
Sewer bats? Did you know there are bats in the sewers? Did you know that?
No, I knew about alligators in the sewer, but never bats.
No, those are crocodiles. It's Batman.
Of course. That's what we're here to talk about.
Of course! And Elephant Bane.
Yes, because I didn't know I needed Elephant Bane in my life until I saw that image.
So you saw this, and now you just wish there was a lot more of it, yeah?
Yeah, like, why isn't he part of Captain Carrot and the Zoo Crew, right?
Yeah, that's right. Man, I love the mutates. I love the Arkham mutates. I wish that had been the whole book.
Yeah, why couldn't we have like a mini series dedicated to them, like a spin-off mini series? I mean, Bebop and Rocksteady got a mini series. Why not them?
Yeah, they all go to the Turtles universe. Today, Deadpoolzilla and I are tackling last year's Batman Ninja Turtles crossover from both DC and IDW. This is written by James Tynion IV with art by who drew this? Freddie Williams. Freddie Williams II. So this is written and drawn by only people who are like the second or fourth. Only people who have parents that have the same names as them. That's how they chose the crew for this.
And have even numbers. If you were like John Williams III, get out.
So, as you may or may not know by now, Deadpoolzilla is the official crossover guy for the Comic Vault, and we announced on our last video, a couple months ago now, that we would be tackling Batman Ninja Turtles next, so here we are, and why don't we just get straight into it. This sold really well, and was pretty popular. I think people liked it quite a bit. I think the art is pretty great. I think story-wise, it's a pretty standard, typical interdimensional crossover, and has a lot of the problems that I have, or not problems, but it just has a lot of the stereotypes that I have a hard time not harping about on our crossover series, Deadpoolzilla. What did you think?
You know, when we first did our collaboration on Star Trek Green Lantern, I remember saying, like, oh, yeah, you know, Batman TMNT, it was good, I liked it. But rereading again, I'm like, what was I thinking?
Really?
I don't hate this. Let me state that again. I don't hate this crossover at all. Having said that, I would not put this in, like, my top 10 list. If I was to do, like, top 10 crossovers, this would not be it. It wouldn't even be, like, in top 20.
I think part of the problem with a thing like this is that the novelty is probably a lot greater if you've never read a crossover before.
Yeah, if you've only just know about Batman and the Ninja Turtles by name, you're good. But, the only thing I feel like you would have to be, if you were a casual Batman fan, is like, who's Damian? When did Batman have a son?
Yeah, well, I'm not even talking about prerequisite knowledge of the various characters. I just mean there is especially for interdimensional stuff, there is a crossover formula, and Tynion is walking that line straight and narrow. And if you've never looked at a crossover before, you might not pick up on that, and you might not mind that, and it might not be as predictable. But, I don't know, you and I have read so many of these things that it really feels kind of been there, done that.
Unfortunately, yeah, that's kind of the thing.
It's just fill in for the variables in the formula, right? Like, if Batman is X and Ninja Turtles is Y, then this story and kind of the culmination where we get to at the end is Z.
Unfortunately, that's kind of the thing here, and, you know, I read that, and then I went back to read TMNT Ghostbusters, and TMNT Ghostbusters does everything this comic wanted to do, and better. And even in a shorter time, it was like a four-parter,
right?
We'll
have to review that at some point, because I remember not caring for that at all.
Really?
Yeah, I liked it. That's interesting. But I read it month to month. I've not sat down and read it together, and just like you, I enjoyed this more month to month than I did sitting down and reading it all together.
Huh.
So
I
sometimes that happens. Yeah, we'll see. I felt like with that crossover, there were some voices that seemed kind of off. But again, it's been a while, and I don't know if
and that one's getting a sequel, right?
Yeah, it is. Which I was excited about because I thought there were some things that could be improved upon.
Oh yeah, totally. But with this crossover, man, why does this? Because Batman TMNT feels right because Batman is definitely in the forefront here. And this again, I've talked about this multiple times in our past videos. Is that what's the one thing you don't want to do in a crossover? Overshadow one character with the other. Boy, does Tinian love Batman.
Yeah, I can see why you're saying that. I don't feel like the Turtles aren't getting enough love here. I feel like we went with a writer that has a lot of experience with one and seems really trepidatious and not sure what he's doing with the other. This feels like a guy who grew up on Ninja Turtles but probably hasn't looked at it in 20 years.
Yeah, because this, if you were reading the IDW comics, you'd be like,
they're not the same characters.
Yeah,
like they're and I don't know. Have you been reading that?
I've been in and out because. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I lost you. Yeah, the big thing here with this is that I've been in and out of the comics because budget. But yeah, if you were reading the IDW comics, you'd be like, well, where does this take place? Because, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. Because at that point in the comics, Splinter's in charge of the Foot now, isn't he?
Well, no. This has to happen during City Fall. That's the only place this could possibly fall. As far as I can tell, it feels like we went backwards because Splinter takes over the Foot Clan. Spoiler alert, folks, for Tom Waltz's Ninja Turtles at IDW, but he takes over the Foot Clan after the Shredder's gone.
Yeah,
and we have the Shredder here, and Krang is still operating. So this has to be before or around City Fall.
Yeah, but this is so confusing.
Yeah,
and this is the other thing.
Same thing with Batman. I don't know where this happens in Snyder's continuity either, because that's where we are right now. Obviously, if this was from last year, this is just, I don't know. Was this being published during Zero Year or just post? Or no, it probably no. I guess it would have been during the Gordon stuff, but like we have a mention of 0 Year, but it probably can't be like right now current Batman because of where Batman is and the fact that he's in the suit, but also because Joker's in Arkham Asylum. Like this has to be sometime earlier in Batman's career. I just wish there had been maybe like a timestamp or something at the beginning of this that gave us a sense of, or some kind of like write-up that gave us a sense of where in each of these worlds this is supposed to take place. And that's all not a big deal if you just kind of generically made this sort of Tom Waltz's Ninja Turtles and sort of Snyder's Batman, and it doesn't matter because this isn't going to inform either of those continuities, and it's very not continuous, and you never really bring up a lot of continuity stuff, you'd be fine. The problem is, it's also too definitely Tom Waltz's Ninja Turtles and too definitely Snyder's Batman. I would have just made that slightly more ambiguous, or make it really clear where in those histories it's supposed to take place.
I mean, with Star Trek Green Lantern, with Star Trek Green Lantern, you knew it was supposed to be like a sequel to Blackest Night. I mean, yeah, there's a little prerequisite, but like you said, there is no. You would really need like a roadmap to figure out where this crossover takes place.
Yeah. I have no idea. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that here's the other thing that really bugged me about this crossover. This thing is a lot about show, but I mean, a lot about tell, but not about show, because the whole thing is that if for those who are listening, the whole story is that the Turtles and Shredder and a big chunk of the Foot Clan have been teleported to Gotham by Krang, just so Krang can take over the world by himself. He doesn't have Shredder bothering him. He doesn't have the Turtles bothering him. But we don't see the effects. And like Raphael and the other Turtles are like, oh man, Krang's probably ruining our city. He's doing probably this, and that. And I'm like, well, show us, Krang's effect, the Turtles and Shredder's, lack of effect on Krang now that he has free range on the city now. But they never do that. And
honestly, I'm not that concerned about because this is a place where you and I differed a little bit with crossovers. The idea that that like we need to see both sides of everything. I don't like I get where you're coming from when you say, because you've said this before, that you want it to be kind of a 50-50 split where both sides get their due. Just because the whole thing takes place on one side doesn't mean you can't still do that. It's not like with Batman Predator. Batman goes to any place in the galaxy the Predator's at outside of Gotham City. I don't think location is really the problem here, but when you have that big exposition dump at the end from April and Casey just to get her in here someplace, it's weird that there's no mention of what Krang is doing and how much cleanup they're going to have to do when they go back. I'm with you. It is problematic that is part of the ticking time bomb. Part of it is the Turtles are going to revert back to their turtle form if they're here too long, because the mutagen doesn't work well with technobabble gobbledygook doesn't work well with our universal properties, but also that Krang's gonna, without them there, Krang's gonna take over everything. I have no idea what they're going back to. And that's real problematic. And it's really silly that Krang is so easily able to just teleport everyone away in the middle of some vague battle, which I'm assuming is supposed to be one that actually happened. But I guess this is almost like a what-if thing where they get teleported someplace else. Like, I don't think in IDW this actually happens where Krang teleports them and then they show back up and then they're like, oh, well, there's this guy in a bat cowl. Like, that's not part of that story. So, like, is this Tom Waltz's Turtles just slightly altered, or is that obviously it's just an excuse to make the interdimensional crossover thing happen? And wouldn't it have been more interesting if we didn't make this an interdimensional thing, and if it was just a version of Turtles and Batman that exist in the same universe? And I'm not saying you can't make that work, but it ends up, but we do it too often, and it ends up. And this is one of the worst. I've not worst I've seen it, but it's as bad as I've seen it, where it's too much about the interdimensional crossover in the first place, and less about what's interesting about putting these characters together. We certainly, and we'll talk about this, we certainly do some okay character stuff, mostly just with Raphael, because that's what somebody that hasn't written Turtles much and doesn't have a take on it is going to do. So that, I don't know. So that's unfortunate. But I don't know that the issue is that we don't go there. I think it's just that we don't talk about it.
Yeah, and that's a lot of it. And there's also a lot of, fights that we never get to see. Like, we never get to see the Turtles, actually fight Croc. Which, by the way, Croc actually has a really interesting plan behind him of basically stripping the parts from the Batmobile and selling them on the black. I was like, that's a really smart idea of Croc and his gang basically wanting to strip the Batmobile of all of its parts and then sell them on the black market so they can trace where the parts for the Batmobile came from, and maybe that'll show like who's working with Batman or who is Batman. I'm like, good on you. I haven't seen Croc that smart in a while.
Yeah, and that's Tinian's Croc. This is, of course, toward the tail end of New 52, and Tinian had done some stuff. I'm pretty sure it was Tinian with Killer Croc, trying to make him a little bit smarter and make him more of a mob boss, master manipulator type, or at least wanting to be a master manipulator type and trying to get people to take him seriously. I think it's a missed opportunity not to bring to the forefront, now that you mentioned Croc, that he is basically already a mutate.
Yeah.
And that's probably why Tinian thought to put him at the beginning of this in the first place, but probably also because he's been doing some stuff with him in 52.
Yeah, what was I going to say? But like I said, we don't get to see the fallout, we don't get to see the actual fight of that. And even the final fight of Batman and Shredder, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people wanted, is really just one panel, and you see all these multiple panels behind him. I feel like I kind of got cheated.
I mean, that's a really cool page. I like it a lot. I think my issue is more that just at large, that last issue was real rushed, and we beat the bad guys too easily.
Yeah, it's that's my biggest issue with it, is that a lot of the stuff gets wrapped up too quickly. But we do get, it is cool to see like some of the lesser Batman, not lesser, there's not the right word, other Batman villains other than the obvious, it's Shredder teaming up with Joker. I'm glad they didn't go that route. It would be a little too obvious, but I'm really glad they chose Ra's al Ghul because I was like, out of all the Batman villains, that's the perfect one.
Yeah, what would have been maybe nicer? I mean, I guess, and I don't mean to harp on this too much, but it's frustrating. I would have loved seeing this formula subverted in any way at all. I guess to a degree we do, just in that at least at the halfway point, we don't take everybody over to the other universe. That's the other part of this that we tend to do when we do these kinds of team ups with the villains. But to your point, especially since you're not liking that it all takes place in Gotham and you feel like Batman's put in front of the Ninja Turtles, how about that's the setting, but Shredder doesn't have to team up with anybody?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, much.
Why don't you make it about the ways in which Shredder would be a good Batman villain and the pros and cons to him being in Gotham and his advantages in going up against Batman. Part of the problem with Shredder though as a Batman villain is that he's too much like Bane.
Yeah, he especially
like Batman kind of already has a Shredder in a way.
Yeah, that's the thing, but I honestly think that, you could have done like with Batman versus Predator, with Shredder, just make him another Batman villain, but like you said, it might be a little too much like Bane with a little bit of Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely sure how you would do that, and so then maybe make it a different character. Maybe bring Krang in instead. I mean, I don't want to rewrite the story, but it just feels like Tinian went to the obvious places in order to sell this. And it's also possible that there were, in these two companies coming together, there might have been some stipulations. There might have been something signed that said Shredder's got to be in this.
Yeah, well, I think that would have been the things that Shredder would have to be in this because, well, that's the most recognizable TMNT villain. I will say that with I'm with you. I think it would have been cool to have Krang in here and see him actually like as the main villain. I think that would have been a lot of fun, especially like him because him experimenting with all the ooze on the Arkham characters. Yeah, that's total Krang. That is totally Krang.
Yeah, what if the idea was Krang leaves our dimension, or the IDW Turtles dimension, and decides, he's been having trouble making his Technodrome project happen there, his terraforming project, because of resistance with the Turtles, and I mean on two fronts. I mean he's got to deal with the Turtles, and he's got to deal with the Foot Clan. What if he goes, I'll just try some other dimension. I mean, there's other dimensions. One of the reasons that the interdimensional crossover thing makes more sense here than it does in other places is that we're already dealing with other dimensions in Ninja Turtles, and then of course somehow rather than Ninja Turtles follow him. The problem with that, of course, is how do you make this a Batman story and not a everything DC Universe story? I mean, once you get that big, it's difficult to buy that you would just deal with Batman.
And this is just a tiny nitpick, is that I want to, like, I don't want to see, like, this actually happen. And this is a thing with a lot of crossovers, even ones I like. I'm like, okay, why did you pick this universe and how did you find it? Because, like, you can't... Why, like, Krang would just go, here's a place called Gotham. Hope you enjoy. Why not just... If you have that kind of power, Krang, why didn't you just send them to, like, a planet made of fire? Or something like that. Yeah,
it reads... And we're really ambiguous about it, so I don't know if Krang chose it on purpose. I don't think Tinian does either. I get the sense that he just pushed a random button and sent them somewhere, and this is where they wound up. And they
pull the lever, Krang. Wrong lever.
And they just had Krang. How many times have I told you don't press the don't button? But it's pretty convenient, of course, that they would just that the Turtles would show up in another place that's with this street level vigilante character that kind of makes sense to blend him with.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad. And
but ultimately, who cares what the conceit is if the story is good? And unfortunately, this is more about the novelty of seeing these characters together. And so I would even have less of an issue with how formulaic it is if I thought Tinian had a better voice for the Turtles.
Yeah, like you said very earlier in this video, it's like, yeah, Tinian just seems he was very trepidatious about writing those characters. I mean, Mikey at points was like, yeah, I can see Mikey saying that. Like, I love the moment. I don't know why, because it's so stupid. I love the moment where Mikey barges into a Peaches shop and he's like, "Oh my God, guys, there's a guy in a bat suit. He's beating the crap out of us." And he's like, "Oh wait, this is my universe." And then he gets yanked right out. And I'm like, this is so dumb. It was like such a random way to open that issue, because I think it was issue 2 if I'm right, but that was such a dumb way it was such a dumb way to open that issue, but at the same time I'm like, I'm glad that happened.
That's kind of funny. There are too many places where Michelangelo is the 2012 cartoon version and not the IDW Turtles version. Like Tom Waltz's Michelangelo is more mature than this and has a lot more character dimension. He's the heart and soul of the team, and he's more wisecracking than the others, and he's got maybe less street smarts, but he's not the clown that the 87 cartoon and the 2012 cartoon Michelangelo is, and he's writing the wrong Michelangelo, and it makes me wonder how much of Tom Waltz's series he's read. Because I mean, there are things he brings up, of course, like they talk about Harold and stuff, Harold Lidja, but like has he just looked at some outlines? Has he just read a few issues here and there? Or has he actually experienced that run up to whatever point this is supposed to be? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that I feel like
he needed a co-writer. Right? That's the big thing, is Tinian is fine for the Batman side of this particular story. I mean, if you're gonna do Batman Ninja Turtles and you're gonna make it as silly as this gets, and that's fine. I like that this doesn't take itself too seriously. I have no problem with that. Tinian's the guy to go to for the Batman side, but you needed an Eric Burnham or something on the Turtles side, I think.
Oh, definitely. I would say that. Yeah, it's very evident that maybe he didn't read, or at least do a lot of research, because I have this weird feeling that when Tinian got to write this, he was like, all right, I'm going to totally write the 87 comic. Wait, I can't do that? Uh-oh.
Maybe it was a rush job, too. I mean, I don't know anything about the background of this. It's also possible they didn't give him any lead time, and that's been a problem with a lot of crossovers where it's companies, and I don't know if this was like this, but where companies have difficulty like getting an arrangement together, and when they finally do, for whatever reason, you have to rush it out for a certain date. That could have happened here.
Yeah, but on the other hand, like, I keep hearing all these stories that DC's been, ever since they've done away with New 52 and all that, they've been very they've been very open bridge with all these other companies. Like, I don't know, like, it could have been a rush job, like you said, but at the same time, I'm hearing all these stories of that DC's very really
they're really open to crossovers now.
Yeah, they're like, well, not so much. Open to crossovers. Not only that, like, they're really not trying to burn any bridges or anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so, and this would have been just as they were putting Rebirth together.
Yeah. So that's my thing, is that I feel like DC, if anything, maybe IDW might have rushed it if it was a rush job, because because this was the first. No, actually, no. Green Lantern Star Trek was the first DC IDW crossover, but this one was probably like, oh my God, guys, we're finally doing a TMNT Batman crossover. Get it out, get it out, get it out.
Yeah, actually, I think before that even you had Legion in Star Trek. That was years ago.
Yeah, I totally forgot. And that's one of my favorite crossovers. How did I forget Legion Star Trek?
That one goes all the way back to 2011, 2012.
And that was like start of the 52.
Yeah. That was just before or just as 52 got started.
Yeah, anyway. There was also supposed to be... Oh, there was also supposed to be like a... I was just going to say that DC and IDW were supposed to do like a Transformers JLA crossover, but that didn't happen because of 52, which I'm like, so why did Legion get the crossover then?
Yeah. One thing that's problematic about this for me too is it's so much about the art before there's anything else, and like I said, the novelty of the spectacle of this. And I don't know about you, I think the art in this is pretty spectacular.
I love the art. I really enjoy
looking at this, and I feel like sometimes Tinian accidentally nearly ruins a full-page spread with dialogue that does not fit it. There's two in particular that come to mind. That big spread in the first issue when Michelangelo screams about his Pony Racers video game. Just take the word bubble out.
Yeah. Oh, and the totally awesome team up. I was
That's the other one. Yeah, thanks. That's the other one.
I was like, oh, really? Can I just not enjoy the moment here?
Yeah, exactly. We're just, don't beat us over the head with how cool it is to finally see this.
Yeah, and the other
just
thing,
just do it straight.
And there's some just really pointless moments in here, like the turtles trying to get Batman to eat a pizza. I was like, was this necessary to the story?
Yeah, I think you could make that moment work. I want to like that. I like the idea that the turtles are getting Batman to lighten up a little bit. I think it happens too early in the story. I think that's the only problem with it. I think if you had it toward the end,
it would have been better. If Mikey at the end of the story, like they're about to go back to their dimension, Mikey like gives him a piece of pizza and he's like, "Here you go, dude." Then that would have been fine. Like Batman sitting at the Bat computer eating the pizza while he's like working on the next case. Like that could be the ending scene right there.
Yeah, or they have almost, I hesitate to say this, but they have almost a shawarma thing. You know, they all sit around at a pizzeria or something, or not a pizzeria, but like in the Batcave eating pizza. The guy, I mean, yeah, Batman sitting out in public at a pizzeria would be preposterous, even for this material. But yeah, I like where we get at the end with a couple of character arcs. I like the broad the sweeping notions, and I wish this was more at the forefront. I like the idea that Batman has to learn to appreciate family by seeing a functioning one that does what he does. I think that's a really cool idea. And
to set it days before the anniversary of his parents' death.
Yeah, I didn't need that though. That's a little on the nose.
Yeah, at the same time, I was like, why wasn't that a little more at the forefront? And also, we have to talk about the origin again. And I was kind of like, and yeah, you're right that maybe it was a little too much on the nose. That I was like, okay, I get it. Batman needs to talk to his family more. But even then, Damian just shows up halfway through the 5th issue.
Out of nowhere, yeah. And that felt like an afterthought. It was like Tinian's like, I need more of Batman's family here in order to make this plot point work, this bit of this character arc work. I wish it was tighter. He should have been there from the beginning. But I think the best idea in the book is the idea that of the turtles as victims. That these are the kinds of people that Batman has been fighting for, like to keep families together, and that they have not like followed his example because they didn't even know that he existed. But you've got this, this more or less well-oiled machine with the Ninja Turtles and Splinter as a good cohesive family that also cares about the things Batman does and is trying to solve the same kinds of problems he does. I like that a lot.
Yeah, so let me ask you this. How did you feel about the Batman Ninja Turtle fight, like, of him beating them all and even fighting Splinter to a draw? I think I just unintentionally rhymed.
The Batman Ninja Turtles Dr. Seuss edition of the comic vault. Again, it just seemed obligatory. It seemed like Batman has to win because he's Batman, and I didn't even think that far about it until you just brought it up. For me, it was just, yep, that's the formula. That's what you do. Batman has to think that the Turtles are responsible for the things that Shredder's doing, so that they can have a big fight at the beginning, and then they'll kiss and make up in the 2nd issue, and then we'll have our big villain team up in the 3rd issue. I mean, like, this is, even the fact that it's 6 issues, right away, it makes me assume what the formula is going to be, and then it's really kind of sad that that's what it is. If it was 5 or 7, I would immediately be thinking, and I don't mean to nitpick that. It's just we've been so clean lately with these like 6-issue miniseries, and they too often end up kind of following a formula or telling the same story.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing, is that I don't know. Like, I just kind of felt like, again,
of course they have to fight. Are we past this place now? Most of us with crossovers. Are we not past? We can't wait to see the Turtles and Batman fight. I don't care about that.
Yeah, I just want to see them work together. Like, even in Star Trek Green Lantern, they were like, well, we're not fighting each other. We got, Kang over there with a yellow ring, and Sinestro's probably not too far away. You deal with this, I'll go deal with that.
And they almost patted themselves on the back in that comic for not having them fight, because it happens all the time. Yeah,
it's just... the only thing that the close they get to...
And they don't necessarily expect it because they want it. That's just what we always do with these. If you came up with some reason for Batman and Ninja Turtles to be at odds, like ideologically or something, and it was Batman versus Ninja Turtles, fine, I could see
the Turtles kill people.
But yeah, I mean, like there are lots of reasons for Batman to have issues with the Turtles, and I don't know, possibly vice versa. We kind of, I don't know, I don't know if we forced that with Raphael at the beginning. I hesitate to say that. I do think he's got to be like really brash and impulsive because he's Raphael and he's not allowed to learn from any mistakes he's had in his past. But within this story, he comes around with Batman, for good reasons in learning why it is that he does what he does. And again, I like the culmination of that. I like the end of that. But it's a little forced at the beginning. Like, of course, Raphael's got to run off half-cocked. He's Raphael. We've kind of that's not how he operates in Waltz's comics,
Honestly,
unless he's pushed too far, and
exactly.
he's not here. You kind of have this sense that Raphael's the only one of them that's really worried about consequences.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, come on, why isn't everyone like Raph for a moment? Because and that's the other thing, is that this feels really weird. Like there has to be like some kind of consequences of the whole. Well, if the turtles don't get back to their universe, they'll turn back into turtles. Same with Splinter; he'll turn back into a rat. And at the same time, I'm like, okay, so why is this suddenly a thing now? Because this wasn't really brought up in the TMNT Ghostbusters crossover.
Well, what? I mean, I'm gonna call whatever on that. I'm not looking for any continuity between these crossover things necessarily.
True.
The Ghostbusters Ninja Turtles crossover is actually part of the continuity of both of those. They refer to it. They talk about it. They remember that time that there were turtles in their place, and the time that these Ghostbusters guys were there. They remember that stuff. This. I'm not expecting any kind of continuity stuff like that. That's not a concern. I don't think. My thing is, I like that ticking time bomb. I'm kind of okay with that. And I like the kind of classic Ninja Turtles notion there, where they're constantly having to fight their animal side. They're trying to keep their rational part. That's a thing we did in the original cartoon show all the time, where there was always something that threatened, or there was often something that threatened to turn them back into turtles again. But and obviously this guy, Tinian, has watched the first two 90s Ninja Turtles movies, and he goes to those places all the time. I don't mind that ticking time bomb, and I like that it's more than just, well, we're stuck, how do we get home? The issue with it is it's deflated, and I'm not all that worried about it as soon as Leonardo gets starts to degenerate, but the other three haven't yet, and I'm like, okay, so we're just making up the rules as we go along. And I mean, what is it? Did I miss something? What is it that makes it so that he can go back into battle again?
If I remember right, it was like Casey gives him a boost of like mutagen or something, or he just powers through it. No, I think he just powers through it.
I thought he just powered through it, and I don't understand that. Like at that point, because remember, he lost all his mutagen. Shredder stole it from him immediately, and and there was some talk about and perhaps I'm just not remembering this correctly. There was some talk about coming up with a way to slow the degradation, but they wouldn't be able to completely fix it. But that was earlier. I thought, like, Leonardo just gets hit with it real hard, and then later he's able to, as you put it, power through it. So at that point, I'm like, okay, so we're just and this is a problem in Star Trek all the time with things like this. Voyager does it a lot, where you'll have some kind of illness that affects that affects certain characters, should affect everybody at the same time, but doesn't. The captain's immune until the very end, and then we manage to get our facilities, our faculties together enough to solve the problem, and just because we need a 5-minute wrap up, that's kind of what we have here, I think.
Yeah. Here's another thing I want to throw at you, Cap. Why did Shredder and Raish pull Casey through the dimensional portal? I know they give him a reason, but at the same time, I'm like, well, why didn't you just try to pull Bebop and Rocksteady? Why did you pull... I know Casey had, like, some kind of thing to track on them, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but why Casey, and why would you... and also, how do you know this, Shredder?
Yeah, sure. No, that's a good question.
I mean, I can buy the whole that they're locking onto Casey's signal, but why pull him through instead of like, okay, we'll piggyback on that and pull someone else through? I know, we'll get Bebop and Rocksteady or someone.
Yeah, and as far as the initial dimensional transport thing goes, I was a little confused because it seemed like Shredder went through earlier, like somehow rather he had been there a while before the Turtles got there, or did it just take them time to find him? I was confused on that point.
Yeah, and the other thing is like, okay, why if you can build the portal that easy with Raish, why didn't Raish contact you sooner or go look for him earlier? And also, didn't the guy who had this whole thing, Doctor, what is his name, Naveen, right?
Something Khan.
Yeah, Dr. Naveen Khan, I think.
He's gotta be a Khan. We love that. We love that name for scientists.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Khan.
Khan's a great scientist name. Yeah, we go to that all the time.
It's great to shout when you're angry. Like, if you want to blame him, just...
But like, okay, so Khan's a good bad guy name, but you see it with scientists all the time, too.
Yeah, but like I said, when Dr. Khan dies via Suicide Squad way, yeah, he literally dies like a Suicide Squad member, and...
which honestly seemed almost too violent for this material.
Yeah, like there was a moment where I was like, okay, that just happened. But then even Shredder killed one of his guys when Batman was trying to interrogate him.
Yeah, I felt like this was also a little bit tonally uneven. And Tinian can have that problem. I don't think he's a terrible writer. I think he's serviceable. But I think he's obviously having a lot of fun playing around in a superhero universe, and it's infectious, and I love that joy coming off the page, but at the same time, it gets really intrusive when he tries to tell a serious story.
Yeah, the other thing, like...
tries to have a serious moment with any kind of weight.
Yeah, that's he does a total 360 on himself multiple times in Detective, where he's like, oh, this is a nice moment. Here, let me throw a dark moment out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's Tinian in a nutshell. And also, I know this isn't intentional, and you're going to think this is really weird, Cap, but I read this at a...
Okay.
I read this comic at a time when... Did you also see that there was just a slew of Ra's al Ghul in, like, almost every Batman title?
No.
He was in Teen Titans. Well, I know Teen Titans not a Bat title, but it had Damian in it. Yeah. He was in All-Star Batman. He was in Detective. It was like a time when I was like reading all those Batman comics, and Raish was all the way in them. And then I read this, and I know this came out earlier, but this, I'm like, man, I know Raish is one of my favorite Batman villains, but I'm getting a little burnout here.
I also don't know that Tinian has a good voice for even the Shredder. I feel like his Shredder is pretty generic.
Yeah, I couldn't tell between his Raish or his Shredder. Like, there's no distinction here.
No, there's not. They just both want to rule Gotham. The end.
I wanted to see more of Penguin, honestly, because
it's your standard. Real quick with Raish and Shredder though, it's your. I mean, they talk a little bit about the philosophies, but it's just stuff that we know about them, that initial foundation, right? It's just they both think that they're worthy of it, and so they should be kings of Gotham. The end. Again, I would have liked to have seen Bane thrown in that mix if we're gonna go there. and make it about might makes right, strongest the strongest should rule, that whole thing.
If anything, yeah, now that I think about it, Bane should have been the logical choice for Shredder to team up with.
Well, obviously it's race because it's ninjas, and I agree with, I forget who says it, I agree with the book when it brings up the idea of race standing on the sidelines, that some other like ninja clan comes in and tries to take over Gotham. The League of Assassins is not going to take that lying down. So I don't mind that they're there. But I feel like when Bane gets broken out of Arkham, I don't know how he doesn't have some kind of a plan or a stake in this too.
Yeah. Another thing, like, and I know this is going to sound, it's a little backtracking, but I was kind of glad to see Penguin in here and get so much, because Penguin's actually my favorite Batman villain.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I was kind of like, oh, look, Penguin with Shredder, that's kind of cool. Too bad he gets thrown in the sidelines real quick.
Yeah, we don't do much with him.
Yeah, but I was like, at the same time, I was like, it's just cool to see people doing stuff with Penguin. Like,
I get the sense that's a character Tinian likes too.
Yeah, true. Yeah, there's something. No, there's a sentence you don't hear very often. Penguin's my favorite Batman villain.
Right.
Anyway, but the mutated animals. Going back to that real quick, man, did they just turn into putties real quick, didn't they?
Yeah, that's true. Really cool reveal at the end of 4, and I love that cover of 5 with them. I think.
Well, it's 5. They show up at the end of 5, and then throughout issue 6, that's the big end all battle right there.
Oh, that's right. Okay. I guess I assumed. Yeah, I'm looking back through this again. I assumed it was 4 because they put them on the cover of 5, or was that a variant? Because I don't always get the main cover.
It was a cover of 5, and then that's the weird thing, is that they don't even. It's just at the end of they don't even show up at the end of. But
they treat it like a big reveal. That's unfortunate that that's that cover, because it gives that reveal away.
Yeah, because it's such a cool cover. It's like my favorite cover of, like, Shredder standing on top of the gates and all the villains are coming out, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be so cool to see. And it's just Ra's and Shredder at the end of the issue looking at Arkham Asylum. And that's still a cool image, but I feel cheated, regardless.
No, I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. And now that I'm looking at this again, no, this is a cool cover. It doesn't give anything away, because they're not mutates on this cover. It's just, they're going to break them out of the asylum. And then you get to the end, and the big reveal is they turn them into mutates. Month to month, that was pretty cool. I don't know if you bought these in singles or if you read this all together.
I read this in trade.
As I said earlier, this spread over 6 months, where you got to enjoy that novelty of, I get to read Batman and 22 pages or 20 pages of Batman and Ninja Turtles once a month. I enjoyed it more that way, and I remember getting to that reveal at the end of 5, and thinking that was really clever, and it was fun to look at that image and try to figure out what all the animals were supposed to be, and what the logic was behind some of them. Mr. Freeze's polar bear is awesome.
He looks so cuddly, didn't he? The art made him look so cuddly.
It's hysterical. I like Riddler as a fox. I wish we got to see Fox Riddler do something. That would have been great.
That'd be great.
I think all the choices are pretty good. I mean, Mad Hatter as a rabbit is obvious and the only thing you can do. I don't know about Joker as a snake, as a big cobra guy.
I was kind of expecting hyena, but then they gave that to Harley.
They did that to Harley, and that's obvious.
The one that made me go. The one that really made me go, okay, that's an odd choice, was making praying mantis Ivy.
Yeah. But I guess it's a mutate. It's got to be an animal before it's a plant thing.
I guess
although I guess we've done plant mutates in other Ninja Turtles things. I know the 2012 show has a big plant mutate that shows up over and over again.
Yeah, Snakeweed's his name.
Yeah, there you go.
If anything, it would have been more like you could have done the bug thing, but still keep it plant-wise as an aphid.
Sure.
Well, I was going to say locust, but I was like, no, they eat plants. I don't think Ivy would. That would be an oxymoron. Right. So,
well, and the obvious thing to do, I guess, now that I'm thinking about it, would be a Venus flytrap, and we see her with those all the time.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know about the Joker snake thing.
The Joker Cobra thing, I was like, oh, I get it. Joker Venom. Okay,
Thank you for explaining that. And he has that whole speech about Joker Venom, and I never put that together. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, and he does this big exposition dump of like, don't worry, Batsy, after I kill you, I'm going to kill them, and then I'll rule Gotham as a snake clown. Won't that be fun? I'm like, thanks for totally throwing that out there, Joker. This is the most lines you get in the comic.
Is that what happened with Lego Batman? Did he read this, and that's why he's terrified of snake clowns?
That's now my headcanon.
That's what happened, right? He read this and snake clowns.
Alfred, we gotta snake clown the whole mansion. We gotta snake clown proof the whole mansion.
We gotta snake clown proof the mansion. There's snake clowns. They're everywhere. They're coming for us.
Oh, this is perfect, Cap. I would read that. I would read a comic of Lego Batman reading this comic and getting that idea.
But yeah, I think this is a problem that there's another problem that we've seen in crossovers before, where your best idea comes too late and you wish it had been the whole series.
They did that with Black Lantern Vulcans. That was
you're right. 6 issues, and it's the penultimate. It's the last page of the penultimate issue that we turn all the Arkham inmates into mutates. Why couldn't we have made that the whole series? And once again, and I think part of the reason I'm thinking about Bane so much with this is that I've been reading a lot of Bane stuff lately, and you go back to Nightfall, and of course that's famously the big first thing Bane does is he breaks all the inmates out of Arkham. When that's what these guys do, and Shredder here is already reminding me too much of Bane's plans, it's just weird that he's not mixed up in this more. But I just think it could have been really cool, your second or third issue. Like your big first act plot point is we broke all the inmates out of Arkham again, because that's what we do when we want to use them all. And we turned them into mutates, and the Shredder tries to control them, and he can't because he's not used to psychopaths. I just feel like that writes itself.
Yeah, you could have honestly,
I don't mean to rewrite the story, but I don't think there's a real solid villain plot here, and I think there are 100 more interesting things you could come up with, going along with ideas that he already put in this book.
I think honestly what would be a cool, if you could rewrite this. Honestly, I would be fine if this was like a retread of Nightfall, but with you mutate villains. Honestly, that would be a cool idea of just having all these villains. That way you could expand what they could do now that they're mutated. Like, can Cobra Joker spit venom, like Joker venom, out of his mouth? Like, that'd be cool. Like, instead of spraying it out of like a little flower, he just spits it at people's faces.
Yeah, and comparing and contrasting Shredder and Bane would be really interesting, because Shredder is trained by by an organization, and he at some point goes his own way and becomes this evil, dishonorable, tyrannical villain. But Bane is completely self-made, and you could have this big question about which is better, and whether or not Shredder is scarier and more powerful because of his training versus Bane's just complete like singular tenacity. There's too much there to not do that.
Yeah, and
the more I'm thinking about it.
And
but
now,
again, you could have made this a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
What's here. I'm not saying it had to be Bane. I'm just saying that when it's this generic, my mind goes to a bunch of other places. That's all I'm saying.
And now I want to see Tom King write in a special Batman story arc, I Am Shredder.
Yeah, exactly. We're coming up on an hour. What else do you want to talk about from this?
Wow, really? We are coming out on an hour?
We are. I know. Is that wild?
Yeah, we actually I was saying, I'd be surprised if we went an hour. No, not really. I think we've talked about everything. It's not a terrible crossover, but like I said, it's definitely there, and it does make me wish that
it's definitely there.
It does make me wish more that we actually got, and we'll never get this, Cap. I want to see a TMNT Daredevil crossover one day, and I will never get that.
Yeah, no, of course. And that's another thing that you have to be really careful about when you do a thing like this is uh, acknowledging how much of a parody of this kind of stuff Ninja Turtles was in the first place. Less Batman but Daredevil, but just generically street level gritty superhero comics, vigilante things, and to still make the Batman stuff work and be able to take it as seriously as you can take it without taking it too seriously. I just think that there's a balance there that's a little bit tough. It is a little bit awkward crossing things over with Turtles that had to have influenced Turtles, if that makes any sense.
No, I get you.
And I love the way and I keep bringing this up, but I love the way we've handled that in Batman Shadow, where like the first thing you think is, well, it's weird to cross those because you can't have Batman without Shadow. So in the first issue, we just immediately address that. We make that the premise of the book, and it's fascinating. And I don't know how you could have done that with Ninja Turtles, but I think the book has to read maybe more aware of that than it does.
Yeah, that actually should be on the list. Batman the Shadow. Now that I think about it, why didn't I think of that sooner? Yeah, I've actually been waiting to come out in trade, Batman the Shadow. But now that you've mentioned that point
it's not finished. I mean, we're only 4 in right now.
Yeah, it's like a 6-parter, but still, like, but now I really want to read that now. What I'm saying?
Yeah.
But no, this crossover, like, there's so much potential here. But the word of this comic is wasted potential.
Yeah, I certainly enjoyed it while I was reading it, and I think it gets better as it goes along.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm like, man, there's so many like opportunities here that you don't do for like little sight gags and for moments that just kind of go nowhere.
Yeah.
And the payoff the payoff doesn't. It's the same thing with like the little thing I had with Star Trek Green Lantern, where the major thing that everyone's supposed to be freaking out about is the last thing we deal with in the comic.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's again, it's kind of that the story starts before the story starts problem, to a degree.
Yeah, but I feel like at least with Star Trek Green Lantern, that was more. I feel like that was a better paced story, even with all the flaws it had.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I'm still glad this happened, and I want. Yeah, and they kind. I mean, it's Batman and Ninja Turtles. What more could you ask for, right?
Well, like I said, at least we got some great art.
Yeah, that's a plus.
This is what you would want this to look like, I think. I think there's some really cool stuff done with panel layouts. I think the coloring is kind of inspired. And I think Williams has what Tinian is really lacking, which is he knows how to put these two things together visually in a way that Tinian's not sure how to do that, narratively. And it looks as much like a Turtles thing as it does a Batman thing, and vice versa. He's taken his cues with the Turtles from Santa Luco really hard, and I like that he is looking at that source material, and it is the IDW Turtles before it's the Mirage Turtles or anything. He knows he knows the best that's ever looked. We've had a few looks for that. He knows what that looks like when it's at its best. And it's weird because his art is real moody looking and has a lot of atmosphere in a way the story doesn't. And so it doesn't feel like an atmospheric story unless you took all the words off of it and you just looked at the pictures, and then it would.
Oh yeah. Again, like we were saying earlier, is like sometimes the word bubbling just ruins a good picture.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some great poster-worthy spreads here that you just don't want you just gotta take the words off.
I honestly would like a poster of that issue of Shredder at Arkham Asylum, that issue cover as a poster. I would totally get that as a poster.
Yeah, I mentioned this will be the last thing I say, and this will sound really nitpicky, but I think it's a good example of some of these missed opportunity issues we've been talking about. That whole Pony Racer video game thing, you go to an alternate dimension, and you've got a lot of things that are really similar, but a lot of things that are different. I like Donatello's line about how in in their world, Arkham Asylum, or Arkham Asylum, excuse me, Gotham is just a big empty plot of land. I like some of the things they talk about that are different between the two worlds. Wouldn't it be, again, this is a real small thing, but when Michelangelo's freaking out that his game got destroyed, wouldn't it be cool if it was like a video game that he found here that they don't have in his reality?
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That kind of thing. We're not playing enough with the idea of the pros and cons of being somewhere that's so alien and foreign.
Yeah. The other thing, that the whole Pony Racers video game joke did make my eyes roll. I was like, oh, I get it, bronies.
I guess. I'm not even sure that I think he's just putting words together.
Yeah, I don't know. That's where my mind kind of went. But yeah, I get you on that one, and I kind of laughed at that joke with the whole, it's a big plot of land in the state of ahem.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so I think I think we've covered it all, haven't we, Cap?
I think so. Next time we're gonna come back and we're gonna do something that's actually a cartoon.
Oh yeah. Tune in
what are
next
we doing next time?
Oh, I was actually going to do a big announcer thing, but
sure, go ahead. I stepped on you.
It's fine. Next time on Comic Book Vault, we dig into Super Secret Crisis War.
Yeah, Super Secret Crisis War.
Oh boy. Ooh, I can already tell everyone in the audience, be prepared, because we're not kind to that. We're not going to be kind to that comic.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's just like this. I haven't read it since it came out, and I've been having this with so many things lately, where stuff that I'm not caring for when I'm reading it month to month, I end up liking a lot when I put it together, and stuff that I like, this isn't obviously across the board, but it's been happening a lot to me lately. Stuff that I'm liking fine month to month, I put together, and I see where all the holes and drop threads and missed opportunities are, and I don't like them as well. And so I'm hoping that going back and reading that together, I like better. But the way it was plotted, I remember it feeling like it was meant more to be read month to month than it was putting it all together. So I don't know how different my feeling is going to be about that. My big thing with that, I mean, we won't sit here and review it before we review it, but we'll see if I still have this. I remember thinking, you have, it's a comic book, you have room. Why does the whole thing take place in one location?
Yeah. That was my thing. It was like, oh boy, universe hop. It's just one big space station.
You're just kind of all on a big space station. So anyway, we'll see what that's like, finally putting it all together and reading it again after, 3-4 years now. It's been a while.
Yeah.
So anyway, everybody, thanks always for listening. We sure appreciate it. We will see you again next time. I was Captain Logan.
And I am Deadpoolzilla, ?
See you later, folks.